Hey everyone, Brian Zane here. Hope you enjoyed your Thanksgiving holiday if you celebrated that. Me myself, I was a little busy late this week, so I wasn't able to get a Survivor Series predictions video out. But needless to say, based on what I did pick for the show, after seeing what transpired on Saturday night in Chicago, Illinois, there were some things I definitely whiffed on, and we will talk about that as the show progresses. Let's begin with the Women's War Games match. You have Team Bianca Belair taking on Damage Control. Dakota Kai is still hurt, but Kairi Sane back in the company. I thought that was kind of cool to see her making her way back. Damage Control is really powerful right now, getting her and Io Sky and Asuka and Bayley all in the same stable, I think is really cool. And then if Dakota Kai, full strength, that's just an awesome group of ladies. And then you've got, Team Babyface here with, Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch, Shotzi, Charlotte wearing a robe that could easily take your eye out, by the way. Speaking of entrance attire, I liked Damage Control and all their cool masks when they came out. Starts out with Becky and Bayley as Becky begins to gain an advantage. Dakota Kai is a cheeky one. She pokes Becky with the kendo stick on the outside. Oh, I bet you want this kendo stick I'm just letting sit in here, huh? Shotzi comes in and she brings in a whole bunch of chairs. That's the big trend, of course, with these War Games matches. One person comes in and they just immediately enter with a whole bunch of weapons. It's their little buff when they first enter. She gets planted between the two rings by Bayley. The leader of Damage Control gets beaten up for a good long while until Io Sky emerges and evens the odds. She brings in a chain. Becky Lynch busted open a bit. She takes a double superplex. Kairi marching her way down to the ring. Shotzi is buried in a pile of chairs at one point. Kairi is launched up, hits an elbow drop onto her. Kairi used as a projectile a little bit later on as well. Charlotte entering last for Team Bianca and gets to work. Io gets thrown into the wall and slides on down. Ouch. We get this face-off with Becky and Charlotte. Will they or won't they? Then Io runs in a semicircle around the women and helps shove the two ladies together. That made me laugh. Io goes to the top of the cage with a chain. Very inventive way of getting the trash can up there without having to throw it up there. The chain being used to pull it up. She Oscar the Grouches it onto the rest of the ladies. Shades of NXT War Games, just in time for Asuka to show up last, but what an incredible moment that was for Io coming off the top like that. Kendo sticks and a table and a fire extinguisher enter the fray. They tie Becky and Bianca up with a chain, but instead of just beating them up with the kendo sticks, they do a quadruple drop kick. Asuka giving what looks like the Mercury miss to Shotzi. Charlotte with a great looking top of cage moonsault, but she comes down hard on Io. Then Becky and Charlotte hug it out in the ring. Becky blocks a Kairi elbow into the disarm her, but it gets stopped. Bayley doing a lot of work here trying to save her team. Bianca with a fire extinguisher into Asuka's face. Bayley taking the bullet for her teammate. She eats Charlotte's spear, then proceeds to take everyone else's finishers, ending with the manhandle slam through the table for Team Bianca to win. I give it 4 stars out of 5. I really enjoyed this matchup here. I think it really set the tone for the rest of the evening, kind of good, left a good standard for the men's War Games match to try and match up. I think that the story they told with Damage Control was really good. Bayley, like I said, trying so hard throughout this match to be a good teammate and rally the troops and just constantly trying to be there and bail out her teammates, ultimately being the one to cost the team the match and take the fall for Damage Control. It makes it kind of wonder, because all the speculation about her status in the group that she herself formed seems to be up in the air now, and this match is not going to help her in that regard from a storyline standpoint. But yeah, I think it was still a really solid showing by the ladies in this War Games match. Little sponsorship moment backstage. You got Alpha Academy eating Ruffles with Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. Pretty Deadly walk in, then they begin to argue over whether they're crisps or chips. Then, holy shit, R-Truth is back. He reminds us to come together in the name of Ruffles, then tells Tozawa to do a Ruffle shuffle, does a dance. But hey everyone, the big story here, R-Truth finally back. Man, you don't know what you got till it's gone. I think R-Truth being injured was definitely a sad time period lately. Now that R-Truth is back and can be his entertaining self, hopefully now the country can heal once again. And who wants some potato chips? Sami Zayn and Jey Uso are having a chat. Randy Orton still has not arrived, and right away you can hear a CM Punk chant from the crowd here. Here we go. This is the big story arc over the rest of the night. Is Orton going to show up? It's reminds me of Fully Loaded 98 all over again. The Undertaker hasn't arrived at the building. Stone Cold Steve Austin's chances are over. Gunther defends the Intercontinental Championship against The Miz. Now, I will say, going into this matchup and as the storyline was progressing, I had my doubts, had my druthers about this, because let's be honest, the words babyface and Miz together, historically not a winning combination, but I was surprised by how the people of Chicago, which is a kind of a market that I normally associate with being kind of the smart crowd, that kind of bizarro type, which might kind of hijack shows depending, I'm surprised that they rallied around The Miz in this one and cheered him like a true blue babyface against Gunther. So to that extent, I think it worked. But, that's one thing that really surprised me about the match was how well the crowd responded to The Miz. The other thing that surprised me was how long this match was, because I get on one hand, you got a 3-hour show, you got to fill time. So, and The Miz can certainly have a match like that. And I think they did tell a good story of The Miz coming from behind the whole time. But when you consider just how The Miz has been portrayed, historically for the last couple of years, I would even say even longer than that, it's one of those things where why is Gunther having such a hard time with The Miz? Just because now The Miz is a babyface, suddenly he can actually be a bit more resilient? I mean, on the one hand, I don't have a problem with that, but it's just one of those things where it just, after what fans have been conditioned to believe about The Miz as a performer, it really comes out of left field when he's able to actually have some kind of competitive fire against this killing machine in Gunther. He does attack Gunther's leg a lot in this match, doing the figure 4 around the ring post at one point. Looks like he's not enjoying those chops though. At one point, the turnbuckle pad comes off, that causes a distraction, allows him to take Gunther to Dick Kick City twice, hits the skull crushing finale, but we get a near fall. Miz looking strong near the end here, but Gunther hits a top rope splash to the back. The Boston Crab turns it into a lion tamer. The Miz immediately taps, and Gunther wins and retains. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. Like I said, I enjoyed this matchup. The story they told I thought was really good. I think that they should have spent some more time really building Miz up as a really credible threat before this particular matchup, because I think we did feel it was kind of a foregone conclusion that Gunther was going to win, and I think that this match should have been a lot shorter than it was. Sometimes I feel that some matches could benefit from going a little bit longer. This one I think would have benefited from going a little bit shorter, because again, the way The Miz has been built up to this point, that's what you kind of expect, even if he is a babyface, and even if he can work a come-from-behind babyface style. But I still think that it should have been a little more brief, and that you can build something more down the line and make The Miz more credible in that way. Dragon Lee makes his premium live event debut, taking on Santos Escobar, who has turned heel and turned his back on the rest of the LWO, beating up Rey Mysterio, injuring him and taking him out of action, and also injuring Carlito as well, who was supposed to be his opponent for this show, but Dragon Lee now making his arrival here. And I think it's really great. I mean, I love Dragon Lee. I think the way he's been presented and pushed so far since coming to WWE / NXT. Before that, I think has been really strong, and it's very refreshing as well. I think he is one of the greatest, luchadors, cruiserweights, call him what you want, right now in the game, and I can't wait to see what they can do with him long term. With this matchup here, you got Escobar teasing to injure Lee in the steps the same way he hurt Rey a few weeks ago. Escobar is on top for a long time, putting his opponent in the tree of woe at one point, but Lee coming back, hitting some beautiful dives. Santos tries to rip at the mask of Dragon Lee at one point, getting an asshole chant. Good work by Escobar to respond a little bit to that, to react there. Big double stomp by Lee. Escobar hitting a destroyer though, follows up with the Phantom Driver to win. I'm going to give it 2.5 stars out of 5. I got to admit, I was expecting a little more from these guys. Now, maybe this is going to be one of those situations where, this is what rematches are for. You can ramp up to more and greater things. This is a match, like I kind of alluded to earlier, a match that I think could have got a little bit more time, and I think would have benefited from going into maybe an additional gear, I would say. But like I said, this was a relatively short time to build these two up into a match, literally less than 24 hours from SmackDown, and then you've got, the possibility for continuation. So I can see why maybe this match wasn't exactly the crazy whiz-bang thing I was expecting. In a match for the Women's World Championship, Rhea Ripley of the Judgment Day defends against Zoey Stark of I don't know, Stark Enterprises. Would be funny if they leaned into that, but that is not the case. But I will say, what an iconic look for Rhea on this night. The hair, the makeup, the chaps, it's amazing. Back and forth to start things off here. Zoey with a quick dive to the outside. Rhea headbutts Zoey in the chest to cut her off and take over. Rhea really dominating for a lot of the match here. There are a couple of times in this thing where something will go awry, but they manage to work through it and recover well enough. Rhea's talking trash near the end. Zoey responds by screaming back at Rhea for her to hit her harder. She really puts up a big fight, but ultimately gets swatted down by Ripley. The Riptide does it, and Rhea retains. I give this one 2.5 stars out of 5 as well. It was a fine match, but nothing much more beyond that. I mean, again, this is another match that felt like a foregone conclusion. Like, hey, we already know the destination pretty well. At least the journey should be interesting. And there were some moments there, but I think that ultimately it was just, yeah, it was a match that just felt there for me. Another fine win for Rhea. I thought Zoey looked okay for the most part, but still kind of has a way to go, I think, in her character progression. Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn, Jey Uso, and Cody Rhodes are all concerned about Randy Orton's whereabouts. Cody telling the other guys to trust him, but can they though? It's now time for the main event, the men's war game match, as the Judgment Day and Drew McIntyre take on Cody, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, Seth Rollins, and Randy Orton, maybe? There's this moment in the intro for the Judgment Day where all the smaller guys are looking up at Drew, and this deadass looks like Frodo, Merry, and Pippin looking up at Aragorn, and then Boromir steps up to him. I make no apologies. It starts out with Seth and Finn in the ring. Seth coming out wearing a jacket, by the way, that looks like it reused parts of the inflatable dick costumes when Joey Ryan showed up at All In. JD McDonough is the next one to come out for the Judgment Day. Get that 2-on-1 attack on Seth, and Finn goes, "It's gonna be a long night for you, Rollins." Jey Uso is in next. Drew McIntyre wants to go out next for his team, but Damian Priest cuts him off and goes in himself. Sami Zayn shows up next. He brings in a table to a massive pop from the fans. He also grabs a conveniently placed steel pipe from up in the corner and attacks with it. Was that a load-bearing pipe, by the way? Drew McIntyre comes in and lays everyone out, slowly stalking Jey Uso like he was a lion and Jey were a delicious-looking gazelle. Cody Rhodes enters. He brings in the bull rope, called back to his father. They tease some tension with Cody and Seth, but they put their differences aside for this moment here. Time expires, and Dominic Mysterio is the last member of the Judgment Day to enter. He is promptly beaten up by all the babyfaces. We get a few more chants for CM Punk, among others. Priest with the razor's edge to Rollins through the table. The final countdown for the face side expires, and it's Rhea Ripley who wants to cash in the briefcase for Priest. Yes, my prediction's coming true. We're going to get the match within, the match beyond. Priest is going to cash in that briefcase and beat Seth Rollins. Then the real match will happen. That doesn't happen at all. Randy Orton shows up after all. His music plays. Huge pop for this huge man as he goes on a run, and the match officially begins. We get a 5-way draping DDT. Orton and Jey have a tense moment because, hey, remember the past? Even caught me off guard they referenced it. Everyone gets their shit in now. JD McDonough trying to escape. He is up top and he is thrown down and take a big old belly flop bump. I mean, an RKO. Honestly, JD doing a lot of the heavy lifting in this spot. Crossroads to Damian Priest, the cover and the win. I'm going to give it 3.5 stars out of 5. I think that, just looking at the two matches together, I think the Women's War Games match was a bit more compelling and exciting of a match to me than this one. I think that the added excitement of, the possibility of the cash-in, Orton's arrival at the very end was a cool moment, but then once that happened, it felt fairly academic. And as far as like drama goes, last year's Men's War Games match is easily going to surpass this one, but that's a pretty high bar to clear considering that's how they debuted the concept on the main roster. This one felt more like kind of a formality of sorts. You've got the baby faces celebrating in the ring. You have the copyright bug in the corner. But oh shit, it's the DIY moment all over again. The show keeps going. CM Punk's music, Cult of Personality, is playing. They did it. Son of a bitch, they did it. CM Punk is back in WWE. Massive reaction from the Chicago crowd here to see the hometown guy showing up. Man, oh Manischewitz. Talk about something that I really fully, confidently felt was never going to happen again. I am eating so much crow right now because I said on X, and I said in the community post here on the YouTube channel, I was steadfast CM Punk not returning. Because after everything that had happened with the breakup between the two parties and all the things that CM Punk had publicly said and done in response to WWE over the years, and all of the baggage that comes with CM Punk after what's happened in the last 2 years from his time in AEW, I just thought, there's no reason. It's not worth the headache. WWE doesn't need CM Punk at this point. They've got the momentum. They've got the other people. And so I just figured they didn't need it. But, maybe they still don't. But they've got him. And I think that's still an incredible never say never moment. I guess I shouldn't be surprised because you consider the fact that, Bruno Sammartino eventually went back. Billy Graham eventually came back. And, Jeff Jarrett eventually came back. Randy Savage was on that bubble before he passed away. And who knows what would have happened. You never say never. And I guess in that sense, it really shouldn't have been a shock that CM Punk came back. But the way they did that at the very end, I thought was incredibly well done. WWE has all the momentum now. It feels very much like this is been a very strong period for them, and this is just going to create more buzz and more talk for them. Now, we're going to have to wait and see what happens with CM Punk. We're going to see just how well those fences have been mended. We are going to see just how healthy CM Punk remains, because that was a big problem in AEW, was he was kind of injury prone. We're going to see if, those egos and those tempers can be, put to the side and don't become an issue. Is it just going to, we're going to see what happens now that CM Punk is back and there is all this additional baggage, this additional information that we've learned in the last few years. Who knows where it's going to end? I hope it ends positively. I hope CM Punk gets good closure. I hope that he remains healthy. I hope that he can have a good ending twilight of his career in WWE that he didn't get in AEW, and that he didn't feel that he got the last time he was in the company. I hope that all happens, and I hope everyone's all hunky-dory. But, I think myself and a lot of other people are going to be looking at this situation. I think a lot of the eyes of the wrestling world are going to be looking at this with a lot of scrutiny. And they're going to see, well, how is this relationship going to hold up? Will CM Punk be allowed? Will he be able to express the way he did in AEW? Will he in WWE? Who's to say? But I know that the next couple of weeks of programming alone, much less the build to WrestleMania 40, things are going to get very interesting going forth. That being said, my grade for Survivor Series 2023 is a B+. The matches that weren't War Games really didn't do a good job holding my interest. I wasn't that interested in them to begin with, and a lot of them felt like foregone conclusions. Then you've got the War Games matches, which I think both delivered in their own ways. I think the women's match was, just from a nuts and bolts standpoint, a superior matchup. I think that obviously the men's matchup had the bigger moment with Randy Orton's return, which is much appreciated. He's been gone for over a year, and I think I'm really curious to see how Randy Orton will do in this relatively different landscape from what he left over a year ago. And of course, there was that big return. CM Punk shocking the world. I was wrong, but I was happy to be wrong. It was a big moment, and let's hope that WWE and CM Punk collectively don't fumble the bag on this one, and they can have a successful run. I think if the CM Punk return didn't happen, my thoughts on this show would be a little lower generally. Still kind of it was a fine show. The matches were okay, but I don't think it would have been, I think the CM Punk return definitely boosted my thoughts about the show overall. But what did you think of Survivor Series, folks? What did you think of the War Games matches? CM Punk's big return to WWE. What are your thoughts? What do you think it's going to be like? I want to hear about it in the comments section below. Let's just say that when I eventually get this CM Punk and AEW video done by the end of the year, well, let's just say a rewrite is in order based on how things went on Saturday. And hey, speaking of upcoming shows, this Wednesday, the Worst of Survivor Series Moments countdown is finally dropping. Don't worry, nothing from this weekend's show is going to be on there, but I hope you watch that one. Until then, folks, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.